I am going to create some hypothesis or create some assumptions which I am going to achieve in the future. If they have done the research on that particular topic also, they will not get the exact conclusion under exploratory research. Qualitative means what? Normally, under exploratory research is going to collect the data directly from the respondents. Identifying the problem is the first stage and it is a very important stage. Without finding the problem, simply collecting the information is a mere waste. Hello everyone, I am Harshita, lecturer, Department of Commerce, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. My dear students, today we are in the second session of Unit 2 of the subject, that is Business Research Method, and the Unit 2 is Business Research Design. So we have already discussed few of the topics in a previous session. So let us quickly recall what we have discussed in a previous session. So in a previous session, I have covered this topic. So we were discussing about research design. Now what do you mean by research design? So it is a framework or it is a blueprint within which all the research activity is being conducted. So it starts from writing of hypothesis till the ultimate result what we get in the research activity. So everything will be decided in advance or everything will be designed in advance. So that is termed as what? Research design. Next, we have discussed about different research designs. So, what are the various types of research designs where we have learnt about primary research methods as well as secondary research methods. So, what do you mean by primary research method? Here, the data is collected for the first time. So, here we have learnt different types of method where the information is collected for the first time. It may be personal interviews or focus groups or any other activity where the data is collected for the first time. That is known as what? Primary research method. Whereas under secondary research method, here the information is collected from the already published data or already published information. So it is already there. So from there we are going to collect the data. So it may be books, magazines or any other newspapers or any other articles. So from there we are going to collect the data, which is called as what? Secondary research method. So in today's session, we shall continue with a new topic, that is exploratory research. Under that, we are going to learn about steps to conduct a research. So what are the various steps under exploratory research? So that we are going to learn in this particular session. So first one is identify the problem. So, of course, in each and every research activity, we have to know the problem. So, under process of research itself, we have studied about identifying the problem is half solved. So, when a problem is been identified, then it is told that it has been half solved. Then, after that, we are going to collect the information in order to solve that particular problem. Here also, under exploratory research, the first step is that what? We have to identify what is the problem. Then only we have to conduct the research activity. So, a researcher identifies the subject of the research and the problem is addressed by carrying out multiple methods to answer the question. So, first we have to identify what is the problem, why I have to collect the information or data. So, what is my actual problem? So, how I am going to solve that is later. But first I have to know what is the problem. Next one is create the hypothesis. So, as per my knowledge, as per the information what I have, I am going to create some hypothesis or create some assumptions which I am going to achieve in the future, which I am going to fulfill in the future, which I am going to prove in the future. So, that is known as what? Create the hypothesis. So, when the researcher has found out that there is no prior studies, so under exploratory research, we know that earlier research or earlier information on that particular problem will be very less. In that situation, what the researcher will do? Researcher have identified the problem. Now, as per his knowledge, he will create some hypothesis. And the problem is not precisely resolved. The researcher will create a hypothesis based on the questions obtained while identifying the problem. So, as per the information what he has, as per the knowledge what he has to create some hypothesis. Next one is further research. After that, he goes on conducting further research activity. So once the data has been obtained, so we know what is the problem. We have created some hypothesis. In the hypothesis itself, after that we are going to collect the data. So after that collecting the data, or after collecting the data, the researcher has to conduct the further research activity. So he has to collect the data, he has to find out where are the sources of data, which are the sources of data, then how to analyze and interpret the data, how he has to prepare a research report, everything that has to be done later. So once the data has been obtained, the researcher will continue his study through descriptive investigation. So he can go through descriptive investigation also. So quantitative methods. So quantitative as well as qualitative, there are two methods. So here qualitative methods, that is through personal investigation, he is going to collect the data, because under exploratory research there will be no sufficient information to conduct the data. So for the first time, the researcher has to collect the data through interview or through focus group or through any other activity. He has to collect the data for the first time. That is, qualitative methods are used to further study the subject in detail and find out the information is true or not. So these are the steps which are being followed under exploratory research. So once again I'll repeat, first he has to identify the problem. So identifying the problem is the first stage, and it is a very important stage. Without finding the problem, simply collecting the information is a mere waste. So what he has to do? He has to identify the problem. Next, create the hypothesis. So under exploratory research, as I have told you, there is no sufficient information to draw a particular conclusion for a particular problem. In that situation, what the researcher will do? He will collect the raw data. So he has to go through primary sources to collect the data. And few of the secondary sources can also be referred, like books, articles, magazines, etc. But primary sources is a main thing in exploratory research, because there is no sufficient information to draw the conclusion. Next, after that, the further research activity takes place. He has selected the sources because there is no sufficient information. So he has selected the sources of primary sources of data. Then he goes on conducting the further research activity. So he has to go in depth, because under this type of research, we don't have any other published data, or we don't have any other sufficient information. In that situation, the researcher has to go in depth and investigate the information. So these are the process of exploratory research. Now coming to the next topic, we shall discuss what are the characteristics of exploratory research. Hope you have understood the meaning. We have discussed about the types of research. At the same time, we have discussed the steps or process of exploratory research. Now we will be able to write all the characteristics of exploratory research. Now we shall go through the first one. They are not structured studies. Of course, exploratory research is not structured studies, because we don't have any knowledge. For the first time, the researcher is going to collect the information, and we cannot directly go through the conclusion because we don't have sufficient information. So it is not a structured studies. So it is an unstructured study. So it is usually low cost, interactive and open-ended. Now what do you mean by open-ended? So in the previous session itself I have discussed open-ended means what? Here the researcher can ask as many questions as he wants until he is satisfied with that particular problem. So here if he wants to go for interview, so what he will do? He cannot ask the questions as per his wish. He can go in depth and ask as many questions as he wants until he is satisfied with them, with the respondents. So it is usually low cost. At the same time, it is more interactive. Here the interaction between the respondent as well as the researcher will be more. So it is more interactive and it is open-ended questions. So under exploratory research, the researcher will ask all the open-ended questions. Next one is, it will enable a researcher answer questions like, what is the problem? So I have already told you in a previous session, under exploratory research we are going to discuss about what, why and how. Correct? So here the researcher will researcher will discuss about the problem. So what is the problem? What is the purpose of the study? So why he has to conduct the research activity? What topics could be studied? So here such type of activities or such type of questions comes under exploratory research. To carry out exploratory research, generally there is no prior research done on the existing ones. So this I have already told you. Under exploratory research, there is no previous research done on that particular topic. A new topic will be chosen by the researcher and he is going to discuss about what, why and how. So these are the few concepts what we are going to discuss, because he will not have any other prior research which is conducted on that particular topic, or the existing one do not answer the problem precisely enough. So if they have done the research on that particular topic also, they will not get the exact conclusion under exploratory research. So it is a time consuming. Of course it is time consuming, because I have told you there is no prior research which is done on that particular topic. In that situation, here the researcher has to collect the information carefully. So it is very time consuming and it needs patience and has risk associated with it. So it includes lot of risk. At the same time, the researcher has to have lot of patience along with time consuming process. The researcher will have to go through all the information available for the particular study he is doing. So I have told you there is no prior research which is being conducted. For the first time, the researcher is going to conduct a research activity. In that situation, it is very time consuming. At the same time, the researcher has to be very patient, because he will not get sufficient information. In that situation, he has to be very patient, and lot of risk is also associated with exploratory research. Next one is, there is no set of rules to carry out the research, as they are flexible, broad and scattered. So I have told you it is an unstructured way of research. So it is very flexible. As the researcher wants, he can collect the information. So it is very flexible. At the same time, it is very broad in nature. It is not an easy task for the researcher to collect the information, because it is broad in nature. At the same time, it is very scattered, because it is unstructured in nature. Next one is, the research needs to have importance or value. If the problem is not important in the industry, the research carried out is ineffective. Now, what do you mean by this? Here the researcher has to select the topic. So he can't randomly select the topic or randomly select the problem. He has to see through that whether it is effective for the society or not. So if it is effective, then he has to take up the study. So if it is not effective and simply he is doing the research on that particular topic, then it is a mere waste. So what he has to think? So it should be effective for the society. So such type of topics or such type of problems has to be solved by the researcher. The researcher should have a few theories which can support his findings. But there may be few theories, but the earlier prior research will not be done, but he will get few theories which can support its findings, as that will make it easier for the researcher to access and move ahead in the study. Now, you might get a question. Now, under exploratory research, I have told you there is no prior research studies which is been done. Then how the researcher will collect the information? Of course, he has to go for primary method in order to collect the data. Other than that, he might get some theory about his study. So using that theory as well as the data what he is going to collect, so he has to conduct his research activity. So this will help the researcher to conduct the research activity. So which are those? That is theory, the theory what he gets, and the practical thing, what the information is going to collect from the primary as well as secondary data. Next one is, such a research usually produces qualitative. So qualitative means what? Normally, under exploratory research, he is going to collect the data directly from the respondents. So it is qualitative data. However, in certain cases, quantitative data can also be generalized. So quantitative means what? Already published data. So which will be in the form of statistical or mathematical techniques. So they are termed as what? Quantitative. Now here you have to remember, qualitative means what? Directly collecting the data from the respondents, and quantitative means what? The data which is collected in the form of statistical or mathematical tools. They are termed as what? Quantitative data. So it is a combination, but more importance is given to qualitative data rather than quantitative, and it can be generalized for the larger sample through use of surveys as well as experiments. So here larger sample size will be selected under exploratory research. Now we shall see what are the advantages of exploratory research. So I hope you know all the characteristics of exploratory research. Now we shall see what are the advantages as well as disadvantages of exploratory research. So the first one is, that is first advantage, the researcher has a lot of flexibility and can adapt to changes to the research progress. Now I have told you, this exploratory research is more flexible in nature. So as and when the researcher wants to change any of the activity, he can change, because it is an unstructured way of research. So this would be the main advantage for the researcher, because it is more flexible in nature. So he can collect the information as per his wish. Next one is, it is usually low cost. Of course, it is very time consuming, but on the other side, it is low cost. Next one, it helps lay foundation to the research which can lead to further research. So I have told you, there will be no prior research activity on a particular topic. So such are known as exploratory research. Now, when a researcher conducts a research activity without referring any prior research, then his research activity will be referred by other researchers. In the further studies, they might refer his research activity. So it may lay as a foundation for other researchers. Next one is, it enables a researcher understand at an early stage if the topic is worth investing the time and resource, and if it is worth pursuing. In the earlier stage itself, that is, while collecting the information itself, the researcher will come to know whether the topic what he has chosen, whether he has to continue or stop that topic. So if the information is available, if there is easy availability of data, then he can continue his research activity. But if the information is not available at all, then how the researcher will conduct the activity? It is highly impossible. So under exploratory research, this would be the advantage, because the researcher will come to know at the earlier stage itself, in the beginning itself, by seeing the information availability, whether he has to continue the research or stop the research. So if the information is available easily, he will continue the research. If the information is not available, he can stop the research activity and he can go for any other research activity. Next one is, it can assist other researchers to find out possible causes for the problem, which can be further studied in detail to find out which of them is the most likely cause for the problem. So it also helps the other researchers. So here this exploratory research activity gives a chance to other researchers to conduct the research activity, because it gives a clue on which topic the other researcher has to conduct the activity. So here I have told you, it lays as a foundation. So based on the activity or based on the research activity of the researcher, the other researcher can also conduct the research activity on other topic pertaining to his study. So that is the advantage. Now coming to the disadvantage. So let us see what are the disadvantage. Even though it can point you in the right direction towards what is the answer, it is usually inconclusive. I have already told you, here under exploratory research, we are going to discuss about what, why and how, but we cannot directly give the conclusion to a particular problem. So we are going to study about it, we are going to collect the information about it, but we cannot directly get the conclusion. So under exploratory research, it is inconclusive in nature. We cannot get the exact result like science. So We cannot get the exact conclusion under this type of research activity. Next one is the main disadvantage of exploratory research is that they provide qualitative data. Interpretation of such information can be judgmental and biased. Of course, here the information what they are going to collect is through qualitative data, correct? Personally, they are going to collect the information because they don't get any other prior information. In that situation, so it is related to qualitative data, so it is highly difficult to interpret such type of data and it may be unbiased also. Next disadvantage is that most of the times exploratory research involves a smaller sample, hence the result cannot be accurately interpreted for the generalized population. So normally, as I've told you, there is no prior research has been conducted, so it is very difficult if they go for large population. So what the researcher will do, he will take a small sample size. So small sample size and he will collect the information. So if the sample size is too small, then the results what the research will provide will not be accurate. So larger the sample size, the accuracy of the research activity will be more. In the same way, under exploratory research, we are going to consider smaller sample size. So thereby, the accuracy of results will also be very less. Next disadvantage is that many a times, if the data is being collected through secondary research, then there is a chance of that data being old and it is not updated. So under exploratory research, mainly they go for primary research method. But sometimes they can collect the information from secondary research method also. But I have told you, this is a new topic on which the researcher is going to conduct the research activity. In that situation, what happens? The researcher wants to refer the secondary data. In that situation, the secondary data might become old as well as outdated. So it may not suit the current research activity. So this will also be the disadvantage. And I have already told you there may be certain theories relating to the topic. So there may not be prior research activity, but there may be certain theories. Suppose that theory is old and outdated, then the research activity or the result of the research activity will also be affected. So this is also one of the disadvantages of exploratory research. Now we shall see suitability of exploratory research, where this exploratory research is suitable. So exploratory research is carried out when a topic needs to be understood in depth. So when a topic has to be understood in depth, then we go for exploratory research, especially if it hasn't been done before. So I have told you there will not be any other prior research which is done on that particular topic, and we have to study a particular topic in depth, then we will choose the exploratory research. The goal of such a research is to explore the problem. So the main aim of this exploratory research is to explore the problem. So the word itself tells that exploratory research, that is in order to explore the problem, and it is not actually derive the conclusion from it. So we cannot get the exact conclusion from exploratory research. So such type of research will enable a researcher to set a strong foundation. Now this exploratory research will lay as a foundation for other research activity, because we don't have any other prior research which is done. If it does for the first time, so this act as a foundation. So this lay as a foundation for other researchers. So will enable a researcher to set a strong foundation for exploring his ideas. So he can give his ideas, because for the first time he is doing a research activity, choosing the right research design and finding variables that actually are important for analysis. So in order to tell here that this exploratory research lay as a foundation, here the researcher is going to do the research activity for the first time on that particular topic, so he can explore his ideas, which can be referred by other researcher also if it holds good. Most importantly, such a research can help the organizations or researchers save up lot of time. So, when the other researchers are referring this research activity, of course, it saves lot of time of researchers as well as the organization and resource, as it will enable the researcher to know it is worth pursuing. So, in the initial stage for the researcher, it might be difficult, but later on, if other researchers refers his research activity, then his knowledge can be explored everywhere. So, these are the suitability of exploratory research. So, in my next session, I am going to discuss about descriptive research. So, it is also one of the important method of research, that is descriptive research. So, my dear students, hope you have understood today's session. So, we have learnt all about exploratory research, its advantage, disadvantage, its suitability, everything we have learnt in our today's session. See you all in my next session with a new topic. Till then, take care. Thank you.